Hi everyone, welcome back to Workshop, and it's repair time again, and today I've got an audio amplifier. This used to be mine, but I gave it away a couple of years ago now. I used to play guitar in a band, that sort of thing, and this used to be the practice PA amplifier that was connected to the mixing desk. And I kind of gave up when I got back into the electronics rather heavily, so I kind of just sort of gave it away to one of the other members in the band, and he uses it in his practice room, for his own band that he's starting up, and it was working away quite nicely until the left-hand channel became intermittent, and right now it's actually totally failed. So you can put an input in the back, nothing on the output on the speakers that are connected to it. It's a W-Audio DA500 Pro power amplifier. It's rated at 500 watts apparently, which I doubt that very much because it's just a cheap unit really. I think it was a couple £100, that sort of thing. And basically it has no controls other than a couple of volume controls. That's what these sort of amplifier heads do. They rely on external preamps or mixing desk, that sort of thing, to do all your EQ, that sort of thing. And this basically just does amplification. So typically you would run these at near maximum on the two volume controls, and you do all your controls including volume on the desk itself. So it became a little bit intermittent. Some days it would work, some days it wouldn't. It wasn't the jacks in the back apparently, and it wasn't like a dirty pot or anything like that. It was just totally dead. So I've just come back from the practice room now where I verified it wasn't working, did a little bit of testing, make sure it wasn't the speakers, it wasn't the inputs, swapped them about, all the rest of it, that sort of thing. And yes, there's definitely a fault with the left hand channel. So I did have a quick look inside it just to make sure there was no plugs hanging out, anything like that, and it's fine. So here it is. It's designed for rack mounting, 19-inch rack mounting, which I didn't actually do. It just sat loose being a practice amp. There was no real reason to protect it physically in a cabinet or anything like that. So there it is there, a little bit more light so you can see. On-off switch, volume control, some power lights and clipping lamps there, and like I said, two volume controls. Round the back you've got the Nutric connectors here, which would be to connect to your speakers, or you've got binding posts on the back here. I always use the Nutric. And you've got the channel 1 and 2 inputs, either the 1/4-inch jacks, or you can use the two phonos here. And you've got the AC power input at the other side. So let's take the lid off and let's have a look inside. Like I said, I've already been inside it, so most of the screws are already out. I'd actually just put a couple back in just for transportation. And there we go. Little filter in the top here. Could probably do with a clean, a little bit dusty, but not too bad. And there we go. So what we've got here is large toroidal transformer, a bit of a hefty brute that. I'm just having a quick look, see if there's any specs on it. Can't quite read it actually. And you've got the small sort of like preamp board at the front here, a big heatsink with a fan, and you've got, I think the large MOSFETs are underneath the heatsink mounted to the bottom of the case, I believe. I might be wrong there, but we'll take a look. And so it's one large circuit board that the heatsink's actually attached to. So you've also got a circuit board at the back there. You've got AC input coming in the left hand side here. You've got bridge rectifier down onto the board, a couple of fuses, the bulk caps here, and you've got the outputs section here where you've got a relay. That'll be a soft start relay. That's in order to disconnect the speakers from the main MOSFETs, etc., the output stage on power up, so that you don't get big thumps or clicks through the speakers and power up. And you've got over at this side here, you've got the input jacks, you've got a coax here, a small 2-core coax there, that'll be the input signals going away off to the main preamp over at the right hand corner here. You've also got a PCB on the back of the front panel for the two volume controls, and they are down onto the main board here via a large connector, I must say. And there's a couple of extra coaxes there. That'll be the volume controls itself. Most of this signals in the ribbon are probably for those front panel LEDs. Now at the moment I don't know whether we've got a preamp problem, or whether we've got a main amplifier problem, or whether we've got some sort of issue at this backboard here, perhaps the relay or something like that, but no idea. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is power it up and start probing around and see what we can see. Right, got power into it now. I've got my phone connected to both the input sockets in the back. I'm using the phono plugs in the back, and I've got one speaker hooked up that I can float between the left channel and the right channel. So now I've got it hooked up to the working channel now, and I'm just actually playing one of my old YouTube videos on the phone. But they're still outstanding. You can see there, you can hear that when I wind the volume up in the front. Those fuses. So that's working. So now I'll disconnect the speaker and hook it up to the other channel. There we go. And I've just got the input still hooked in. Wind that one round, and absolutely nothing. And just to be sure, I'll swap the two phono connections over, just in case there's a dodgy signal coming in, and still absolutely nothing. And if I move it back again, run Windows, I think that's working. So there's definitely still a problem with the amplifier. So now I'm going to have a look and see whether the problem's with the preamp or the main amplifier or the relay at the back, etc. Right, in order to test the amplifier, I've hooked up my little cheap and cheerful signal generator here. It just generates a sine or a square wave, dial up the frequency you want, and you get an output in the two banana jacks at the bottom here. So I've made up a little cable that goes away off to a 1/4" jack on the back of the amplifier, and I can move it between the two inputs in the back. So I've set it up for a 100 Hz tone, just continuous, and I should be able to hear on the amplifier. So if I just hook it up to the working channel, you can hear the tone there. And I've also hooked up the oscilloscope, so let's take a look at that. And with the tone running, I should be able to scope that if I just get onto it now, and there it is. A 100 Hz tone, or should be. Now if I move it to the jack to the dodgy channel, well, before I do that, just confirm again. That's working. So I'll move it to the dodgy channel and move my scope probe to that channel inside the amp. I am getting it there. So I'm measuring the actual signal for the scope on the little coax that comes off of the main board at the back where the input jacks are, and there's a little wee three-way connector there. In the middle is the screen, and you've got left and right either side of that, red and white, so which is scoping it on there. So I have verified I am getting a signal at that jack, just in case there's any problem with the jacks and the solder joints on the underside of the jacks here. Right, I'm just probing around at this stage. So the next thing I'm doing is there are two volume controls on the front of the unit here. I'm looking down on the connector that I disconnected earlier on that goes away off to the back of the volume control pots and the LEDs. Now what I think we've got here is two coaxes and a ribbon here. I think the ribbon are for the LEDs, and the two coaxes here will be the signals to and from the volume pots, i.e. looks like there's 3 wires in each. You've got a screen and 2 signals. So I suspect that's just the volume pots directly connected to the main board down here at 1 per channel. So if I scope them, I'll go into the good channel first of all and go down on to the red wire there. No idea which one's wiper, etc. I go down onto there. I'm getting nothing on the scope. Go on to the other connector, the other coax, sorry, the red connection as well. I've got a nice sine wave, and it's independent from the volume control on the unit, so I think that's the signal going away off to the pot, and that's on the red wire, like I said, on that coax. So I'm assuming that the red wire on the other one will be for the other channel. So I'll just get on there. It's dead at the moment, but let me move the input connector. Nothing on the scope. Nothing at all. And if I probe around on any of those connections, nothing at all. Right, I found out why I'm getting nothing on the connector here from the dodgy channel, and that's because, if I just zoom in, on this connector down here, which comes from the input jacks at the back, the pads on the underside of this connector were ripped off the board. How on earth that is, I've got no idea, but that was the case. So it was obviously intermittent there, and this is both the channels and all 3 pads were ripped, so it was just luck that the good channel was actually making a connection there, but the dodgy channel was certainly why that was the case. So I've fixed that, and I have retested, and I'm still getting nothing on the output from the amplifier on the dodgy channel. I'm getting the signals present here now, but I'm getting nothing back. And it appears I'm getting nothing back from the pot on the front of the panel there. So we need to have a look at that. Board off, and you can see the 2 coaxes that I was on about there. And let's look at the back there. So we've got a red and a white and then a screen. So you've got the red wire going to the wiper. One side's grounded on the pot, the other side is connected to the white wire, and on the other one, the 4th one in, should be the wiper. Aha, other way around. So the red wire on this pot goes to the wiper. It's the white wire on the other pot that goes to the wiper. Oh dear. So I think I found a problem. I think it's the volume pot. Right, so I'll put both pots at halfway, and I'll go across the working pot, across the 2 outside connections. That should be the resistance of the pot, so that's 49k, it'll be a 50k pot. So if I go into the wiper and one of the connections, 8.8k, right, halfway it should be 25k, so it's obviously a log pot, which is quite usual for a volume control, because our ears are not linear. Go on the other side and it should be around about 40k, something like that. Yeah, 40.6. That's a working one. Go across the other one, 2 outside connections. 50k again. Go on the wiper, on the pot, not the pad and the PCB. And I'm way up at 19 meg. And on the other side, yeah, 20 meg. Again across the 2 outside, 50k. This pot's knackered. Wow, 50k log pot. I'll really be raking the parts bin now, so let's go and have a look. Well, I've removed the pot, it's a bit of a mess, but the PCB's intact. But there's one thing I noticed. Now, it's not the problem because I was actually measuring the resistance on the pot itself, not on the PCB. But you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but inside side of those pads there I've never seen solder, only the outside part there, so they've not really been reflowed all that great. Sorry for the short there, that was just me when I was desoldering it. So like I said, that's not the problem, but the problem's with the pot itself. So looking at it, it just looks fine, there's no broken pins, but like I said, I was measuring on those parts of the pins there, and that's as close as you can get to the carbon track. So I think the wiper's got a broken carbon track within, and therefore it's knackered. So let's go and have a look at my parts bin and see if we can find something that'll work in its place. Well, I've raked through my pots bins and nothing. I've got 50k pots, but they're not log, so I'm going to have to come up with something else. So here's what I'm going to do. So I've taken the pot apart, take the cover off, and let's see what's going on here. You've got a centre track that comes in on this pin here, goes right round the underside on this little circuit board and out on this pin here. You've also got the centre pin comes in, goes round an inner track which is not connected to the outer track, and basically back out on itself. And then on the underside of this plastic thing here that moves when you rotate the pot, you've got these two little metal slides that lay on the tracks, and it's attached to this plastic thing here that rotates. You can see it there, hopefully you can see in there two little metal slides that sit on the tracks, and as you rotate it they go round on the tracks, and they're actually connected together upon the underside of this white thing. So basically, depending on the position of the pot, you will get a short between the outer track and the inner track, and the position on the track will determine the resistance you get when you rotate it there. So doesn't look broken. I've verified. You can just see, if I rotate it around, you can just see this the centre carbon track coming away off of this connection here, and it is intact. Sometimes what can happen is this can loosen up and you get a bad connection between it and the carbon track, but in this case it seems quite tight. And also, if I measure the resistance by sticking a probe in just where the carbon track comes off of that connection there, it is a short circuit between there and here. So what I think's happening is there is the two slides that go round on the tracks. They're both meant to touch the carbon tracks respectively. I don't think that's happening. I think one of them's maybe sitting slightly up, it's bent up or something like that by the smallest degree, and it's not connecting. They are still joined together quite okay, because I mean you can't really see it, but you can just sort of see in there the metalwork of the two slides that come up, and they just basically connect together up under the underside of this white thing. So I don't think there's no problem with them being connected together. I just think they're not sitting on the tracks properly. So what I'm going to do is I've got the a little bit of sandpaper here, the finest stuff I could find. I'm just going to put it under the slides sitting on top of the carbon tracks, and just drag it out through a couple of times, and hopefully that might clean any debris or anything like that that's on that metal slides. So I'll just go my way and do that now. Right, I've done that. I've got to be very careful you don't damage the carbon tracks, but it's just paper on the underside of that sandpaper, so it should be okay. So now I'll need to check the resistance now between the inner pin and any one of the outer pins throughout the travel, and see if we're getting anything. Right, that's the cover back on. So let's see, I've got the pot at the minimum position here. So wiper to outside, 6 ohms, and on the other side 50k. Turn the pot right up, back onto the original side again. 50k. Oh. 9 ohms. I think that's it working now. I mean, if this had been a professional repair, obviously I'd change the pot, I'd order the right one, but as it's just used for a bit of practicing, I think we'll try this in the amp and see what happens. I'll bolt it up before I solder it. There we go, and solder it up. Where's my solder? And while I'm at it, I'll just reflow the other side. There we go. Let's put it back in, see what happens. Okay, that's reassembled, power on. I'm into the working channel input and output, and got a tone. That's the working one. Across to the other side, and the input and the output. Hey, working. And it's not scratchy at all at the moment. Brilliant. So now I can give it back to my friend and he can use it again to practice with his band. Thanks for watching.